Now the thing that really stood out is at the very end, and it was about should boards receive salaries.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I think that that's something that when I ran for school board, there was a great deal of pride in the fact that no one took a salary on the board, and that was expressed. I think that the lack of taking a salary, or the absence of a salary, makes it much more difficult for people who are not of a certain wealth level to run for this board, or much more difficult, yes, that was correct, for them to run for this board, or for others that are comfortably well off, that can afford to just come and give this much time. And I think that that's a really good discussion for the future board. I would suggest that that's something to really consider in terms of who you get running for office and who you get seated on this board and what we look like.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially as you apply the diversity lens to that.
And she brought up, I had read that too, and since we're having, this is the chance we get to have this discussion, you know, that I think anyone, before we come on the board, we don't recognize how many hours it is. You can be told it's, you know, it's going to take up a lot of your time, but it doesn't sink in until you get on here. And, you know, most of you know I'm trying to balance a job, and like you guys are, kids, and, you know, a job that I have high responsibility in, and, you know, devoting and keeping up with these timelines. And I think that, you know, this altruistic nature, you know, I don't think there's another elected position in Washington State, I'm pretty sure of this, but I could be wrong, that doesn't get at least some stipend, even fire commissioner, you know, and I know they meet less than we do. So, you know, I think it's something good for us to think about and maybe advocate for, especially with they talk about the bigger districts, and, you know, even people that could work part-time that are getting something. And I think it provides an inequability with administrators getting paid and us not getting paid. And
so we don't get to, as the North Shore School Board, have a salary, but we can get $50 per meeting. And it wasn't I think if I remember it, the conversation was we were in an era of budget cuts, and it was an easier conversation to have with the community as we're saying we're cutting this if we weren't collecting our $50 a meeting. Not that $50 was going to do much, but that was the visual.
I was going to share the one thing that I remember distinctly my husband saying after one of our long nights, or many of those had passed by, in those first 2 years that I was on the board and there were massive budget cuts going on. He said, "Thank the Lord you don't get a salary. They would be hanging you from a tree."
Right.
So that's just a
figuratively.
no, literally. I'm thinking they would have been. And so I think it's just a cautionary statement, but at the same time, I don't like the exclusive nature that comes from you can't run for this if you aren't a vote.
So that's
A
a
certain amount of
conversation
income.
we need to
Yeah.
be bringing to
I
our state
like that.
legislature.
Yeah. that makes
Could
sense.
you, when you do that, will you talk about retroactive pay? Just kidding, just
For
kidding.
these people
Yeah.
that, I think just to clarify, it's not about getting paid, it's about making it equitable. I feel it's equitable for us and the amount of time we put in, and not that we can make that decision, but I wouldn't mind advocating for it, and also to allow people that, you know, might not have the ability to not work full-time or try to balance it. I mean, it's very difficult.
$50 a meeting would cover a babysitter.
And there you go,
Yeah.
that's true too. You know, I have a little one at home, and sometimes I'm juggling, trying to get.
So it sounds like a good
Or your
future
gas.
conversation.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You have to report more though, if you have money
Yeah.
coming up.
I think so, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, next item on the agenda is future agenda items.
So I have something that does not necessarily have to be a future agenda item, but I had a question regarding some emails that have come about the changed statement to the community and about what they testify about and what goes on in testimony. And I real quick jotted it down. A court case regarding public testimony occurred when a member of the community expressed displeasure with specific employees and council members right here in Bothell. So I believe it was found that it was illegal to limit testimony. But I heard this from one source, and I'm hoping staff can research this. I do not know the name of the complainant. I cannot remember his name, but his wife works in the district. So perhaps someone here will remember the name of the man who stands on the street corner with the big no signs.
I'm not tracking the question, I'm sorry.
So my question is, we limit testimony so that it does not include employees by name and refer to the complaint
In
process.
public comments, right?
In public comments. But I heard of a court case that was decided that the public can do that. And that's what I'm wondering if that is, in fact, I've heard it from one source, but if that is indeed a fact, I think it's important to our message and what we can and can't allow in testimony.
I can certainly look into that.
Thank you.
I was thinking in the document that you forwarded, which by the way, thank you, it's actually a pretty good document on the Open Public Meetings Act. I do recall seeing in there that there's nothing in law that requires public comment periods, so they are at the discretion of the governing body, and they have a wide range of discretion as to what they allow to be encompassed within public comment and how long, et cetera. But that's a good question. I certainly could research that.
All right, next item on the agenda is board reports. I'll start with Amy.
Did anyone else have future agenda items? I would still like to have a discussion about how we're looking at, and maybe this is more of a study session question, and I know we got presented some information in our board briefing about the principal evaluations. So, and I'm talking about district-wide, because I'm just finding some interesting things about, where community involvement is a piece of it, where it's not a piece of it. Maybe what I'll do is send you my questions, and then at the same time, I want to think about this as potentially, because I think where it is relevant to the board is that we're doing superintendent evaluations, and we're looking at that, and we're looking at engaging our community, so I'm kind of looking at it from that community piece of it. And so just wanted to put that out there, but now that I'm thinking out loud, I think I'll forward my questions first.
I want you to, and
Yeah, I will.
I would just note that there's only one employee in the school district whose evaluation is subject to being discussed publicly, and that is the superintendent. Every other employee, their evaluation is a confidential,
Right,
not subject to public disclosure.
right, yeah, but I wasn't saying I wasn't saying it is subject to public disclosure as far as having community input, like what constitutes community, and I think there's some discrepancies, and maybe that's more of a study session question. Maybe once I put my questions to you, it might make more sense, so.
Let's start with your question.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
I think there was a previous request I made for a discussion about internal auditor, and there was some confusion about whether I meant internal auditor or external auditor, and is that coming up on an agenda?
If you refer back to, you may not have gotten this because it was in a board briefing a couple of weeks ago, but a memo that I sent out that kind of gave you the status of the agenda items that had been requested. And Kimberly had requested that and said that she was going to be forwarding some information, and as of today, I don't have that information yet.
Yeah, I think that's different than what she's talking about. This is about a bond accountability, which is different than an internal and external auditor. Those are two different.
This is an internal auditor.
Correct. That's
On the
different than,
district.
I'm talking about a bond accountability board, it's not an auditor. I think they're two different things.
Two different
They were
things.
they both sounded like auditor to me,
Yeah,
so
it's,
I put them together.
I think they're different.
So it helped me understand.
So they're not going to be audited, just so they aren't on the schedule that you referred to in a board briefing?
I responded to what I understood
Waiting
to be
on
the request,
information.
waiting on information. And we can bring yours up now, and if there's a majority that wants to put that on the agenda, we absolutely will. If you could express exactly what you are after.
An internal auditor would do a job and be hired by the district to do the job to assist with auditing, to understand that we are following laws and doing the things we need to do, perhaps keeping us from audit findings or things like that.
Feel compelled to point out that the only audit finding was a board violation of Open Public Meetings Act, so.
There were other items that were discussed in the exit interview and in the auditor's report, but if you had read my statement that I wrote, that was also something I brought up, was we were supposedly discussing that on that agenda, Open Public Meetings Act violation, and yet that agenda item was changed as well to Facebook instead of the Open Public Meetings Act violation, which was really dependent on the superintendent's actions, not really any board member actions. So I think an internal auditor would be something to have a good discussion about.
So I'm getting a
And
little
receive more
confused.
information, probably,
I'm getting a little,
from the people that actually do that job. That would be our CFO and audit committees and things like that, to hear more about internal auditors.
Is there board desire to put that on as an
Amy
agenda?
has a question.
well, I'm just a little confused about the proposal of the auditor. I heard lots of different references for responsibilities, but in general, my response is I have some headcount, basically, that I've been an advocate for since I became on the board, and if we're gonna,
What?
well, if we're going to add a salaried position outside of a budget cycle, outside of the actual budget process, when we'd have to reassign resources to fill that position, there are some things that I've wanted to advocate, I have advocated for, like more counseling services at our secondary schools, like more mental health counselors. And so if we're going to talk about very specific positions, I think we need to have a budgetary conversation. Because there's things that I would love to talk about, but I've kept it to the budget discussions. And so if we're talking about a very specific position, I would want it to cover.
So you'd like to perhaps see that conversation go on when the board discusses the budget? And I would be fine with that.
And I would be fine with that too.
I probably won't be here, but I think it would be a good thing for the staff to give us more information. You more information on.
That's just, I'm just one factor.
I would, yeah. This came up actually earlier today in our meeting, and I'd like to clarify publicly about the Open Public Meetings Act violation. The violation is, I don't believe there was a violation, and I believe I tried to strongly make that point in the exit conference. To the extent there was a violation, it was a violation of what board members discussed or reported that they discussed to the auditor, not what I discussed. I'm not subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. So whatever I may have said at that dinner, which I do not believe rose to the level of district business, is not the reason that the district received an audit finding. The district received an audit finding because 2 board members who were at that dinner reported that they discussed district business, and that's the basis of the audit finding. I just want to be clear on that point. Thank you.
It came up today earlier, so, and you didn't have the opportunity to hear, so. Anyway,
I didn't report that I had a conversation. What I reported was an ethics violation, which was in our policy. So that, if we're making things perfectly clear, that was what I reported to the auditors.
I think the auditors based their finding on the notes that you've all seen and been provided, that referenced their follow-up. They didn't talk to me prior to issuing the finding. I would have told them exactly what I told them in the audit exit conference. They based their finding on the conversations they had with board members that were captured in their notes. That's what they based their report on. So again, I believe it's an unjustified finding. I believe it's an incorrect finding. But that's what they made their determination.
All right, next item on the agenda is board reports, and we'll start with Amy.
So I just wanted to talk about, I got to help out at Sunrise Elementary's first day of school, which honestly, they didn't need me very much. They had such a well thought out plan in terms of how to welcome the new EAP families in. In fact, the staff had agreed to rearrange the school. So they made available, you know, it's your standard early 1980s elementary school in the district where you have corridors and they're arranged by grade. And so teachers actually moved to make sure the second grade classroom was with the other second grade classrooms, the third grade classrooms. They rearranged the school. They had extra volunteers on site to help with traffic flow, because you know the parking lot's really tiny, and I helped one child to a classroom. That was it, because they were registering that day, and I stood by the EAP shuttles. Everyone knew where they were going. It was so incredibly smooth. Extra PTA folks on hand to welcome parents to a coffee. I just have to report what a great job they did. It was wonderful.
Sandy?
Yeah, just to echo, we had a meeting with Leanna Hotek from, not Senator Murray's staff, the Senate Help Committee, which is the acronym, and it involves education, as well as staff.
Health, education, labor, and pensions.
Thank you, good job. As well as a member from Senator Murray's staff and somebody from Congresswoman Ben's staff, so very generous with their time, great conversation. My follow-up is that there was definitely a lot of enthusiasm for getting ESA reauthorized this fall, although recently there was an article that lists the top 10 things that Congress needs to get done this fall, and this doesn't even make the top 10. So
That's for Senator Murray.
I know it is for Senator Murray, but definitely we were got the feeling if it doesn't get done this, and this is sort of as my legislative rep, we were told if it didn't get done this fall, then it will get detracted by the presidential election, and it will be a lot longer before ESA will finally get reauthorized. So, and certainly some members of the committee are running for president, so we have good times. Then I helped out with Woodmore Wednesday morning, and we have 850 kids, so I helped another, many kids, only made one in the wrong direction. And then the next day helped out at North Shore Junior High, and really, I love the junior high kids, the ones that had lost their schedule from the day before, as well as the ones that, as ninth graders, didn't know what they were supposed to do on the first day of school. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Go get your schedule. But great fun, well organized, after a wonderful start, lots of enthusiasm. Excited for another school year.
Great. Dawn?
First off, I was, the first day school came and I was surprised I had not heard a request for school board members to choose a school. Did that come in one of the board briefings that did not get delivered to my house, or was that on the dais and I somehow missed it? I used to get an email.
On the dais, you indicated that you were going to be out of town on the first day of school, so that might be why you didn't get connected.
I was not,
Yeah.
and I was surprised, and I used to get an email. Did board members receive an email this time? I did not.
I think we indicated to Cindy that we were interested, and then that generated an email. There wasn't the blanket email that you're referring to.
We should probably in the future remember to send a blanket email, because my plans apparently changed and I was in town, and then I wondered, why didn't I get invited to first day of school activities?
Wasn't personal,
I didn't say it was.
No, I'm just.
I was omitted, and I was just wondering how that rolled. you have a better memory of what I said. I did not remember saying that, but I was not out of town as it turned out, so I was kind of wondering about that. This past couple weeks, I was honored in an amazing way by the League of Education Voters for my service of 8 years. They held a party for me, and it was really very, very nice. And so many things were said about me. I had one fellow advocate say, "Wow, how did that feel?" And I went, "Different." That was really an amazing thing they did for me, and that was very sweet. And in, not this weekend, but next, is the Legislative Assembly. And who all is going this time? Are you too? Okay. All right. I am the general bouncer, door guard. I'm sure they'll assign me to read an issue and that kind of job and my committee work. So I'll see you all there.
Thank you, Dawn.
So, and I want to thank you, Dawn, and you, Janet, for your 8 years of service, because that's a long time.
9.5 for me, but not that I'm counting.
I think, you know, it definitely, it's a lot of work, and so I think it's great that you guys have managed to do this for that long, so. And you guys made it through in one piece. I worked at Kokanee with my husband. We worked together. And we, it's amazing, I'll say it again, I wrote this to Larry, 760 some odd students in that school, and shuffling all those kids to their destinations, and that school never feels like there are 768 kids, and it runs very smoothly at that level. And we worked in the office, and Gianna, my daughter, got to take kids to her classroom, and then I delegated Mark to take kids to the classroom. But overall, there wasn't a lot of kids in the office that were looking for direction. And so it's just really nice. I'm very thankful that we're there, and that we have those teachers and administrators that make that school run so smoothly. And let's see, I think it's Labor Day, so I was thinking of all the labor that we were all doing. We should all give ourselves a pat on the back for all the work that we do, yes, to make this district run.
All right, thank you, Kimberly. My only comment regarding the roundtable discussion was that I came away with hope that it might actually get done this year, and I'm determined to hang on to that hope, so don't be taking it away.
What did she call Ellen Burke?
Oh, right. Ellen Burke was there representing WASDA as well. I was at Kenmore Elementary first day of school, and Kenmore Junior High the second day, handing out schedules. And again, just kudos to staff, principals, everyone. Amazingly well-oiled machine, and you guys are amazing. It's amazing that how smoothly it all goes with that huge number of students that are beginning their new year. So anyway, thank you to staff. I don't have anything further. I do have a couple of notes. Let me find them. Legislative Assembly, which Dawn already mentioned. I will be there the day before for my committee meeting, but will not be attending Assembly. WASDA regional meetings are coming up on Tuesday the 29th. There's one for Director Area 1, which I know is not ours, but it's closer. It's in Linwood. And then on Wednesday, September 30th, that's Director Area 2, that's in Issaquah. And if I'm interested in going, and I haven't decided which one I'm interested in going, and I would love to carpool with somebody. So if you would let Cindy know, if you are planning to attend and which one you're planning to attend. If you can let her know this week, that would be great. That they start at 6 o'clock and they end at 8:30.
What was the other date? First one?
Tuesday, September 29th is from 6 to 8:30 in Linwood, Director Area 1. And then Wednesday, September 30th is 6 to 8:30, Director Area 2 in Issaquah. And that's the WASDA Director areas, not to be confused with the North Shore Director areas. So, and you can find out more information on the website if you want to. So that's all I have, so this meeting is adjourned.
I never,